My name is Marcus Hale, I'm from Charleston, South Carolina, and let me tell you something, family can cut deeper than strangers ever could. You think betrayal creeps in quietly, like a whisper behind your back? No. Sometimes it storms through the front door and slaps you across the face with the truth. And that truth hit me hard the night I found out what they had done. It started with shouting. My brother, Anthony, stood across from me in my own kitchen, his face red, his voice sharp as broken glass. You're always so dramatic, Marcus. Always playing the victim. Do you even hear yourself? We don't owe you anything. His words came fast, venom laced between every syllable. He was taller than me, broader too, and he leaned in like his size gave him the right to crush me. I slammed my fist on the counter so hard the dog flinched. Don't owe me anything? Don't owe me anything? My voice cracked from the weight of what I'd held inside for too long. You left me here like a servant, feeding your dog, keeping the house clean while you and your little crew spent $80,000 on a vacation without me. Do you hear yourself? 80 grand blown on yachts and champagne while I'm eating ramen noodles in your mansion. His laugh was sharp, almost cruel. You wouldn't have fit in anyway. We needed space from your negativity, your constant complaining. You drag everyone down. Negativity? My chest burned. I took a step closer, close enough to smell the cologne still clinging to his shirt, probably bought with money he didn't even earn. Negativity? You mean honesty. You mean truth. You wanted me silent, Anthony, because you knew I'd remind you what you really are, a spoiled brat playing king with dad's money. He shoved me back, hard enough that I stumbled into the counter. Careful, Marcus. Don't forget whose roof you're under. Those words cut sharper than any shove. Whose roof? The roof I'd repaired with my own two hands after hurricanes tore through the coast. The roof I'd worked nights and weekends to help preserve when everyone else was too busy sipping cocktails. I stared at him, breath heavy, and in that moment I felt something break. You know what, Anthony? My voice dropped low, steady. You're right. I am under your roof. But not for long. He narrowed his eyes. What's that supposed to mean? I leaned in, my face inches from his. It means the roof you think you own, the house you think belongs to you, it's already gone. I sold it. Every tile, every brick, every square inch of this $6.2 million beach house is no longer yours. By the time you unpack your overpriced luggage, you'll be homeless. The silence that followed was heavy, like the world itself had stopped spinning. Anthony's jaw dropped, his bravado cracking for the first time. You're lying. I didn't blink. Try me. The papers are signed. The deal is closed. The money's already in the bank. His face twisted, confusion battling rage. You can't do that. You wouldn't dare. Oh, I dared. My hands shook, but not from fear. From release. From finally taking back the power they'd stolen from me. While you were out pretending to be royalty on some tropical island, I was here making real moves. And guess what? The new owners are moving in next week. He lunged at me, grabbing my shirt, pulling me close like he wanted to choke the words back into my throat. His spit hit my cheek as he screamed, "You've ruined everything. You selfish, bitter little man." I shoved him off me with all my strength. No, Anthony. You ruined everything. When you decided that money mattered more than family. When you decided I wasn't good enough to sit at your table. When you spent 80 grand to make sure I knew exactly where I stood, on the outside, looking in. The dog barked, circling us nervously, but neither of us cared. Years of resentment were boiling over, spilling into every corner of that kitchen. My voice shook as I shouted the truth I'd buried for too long. You thought I was weak. You thought I'd just take it. But I'm done being your shadow, Anthony. Done being the forgotten brother. This, I pointed to the walls around us, the gleaming countertops, the panoramic ocean view shining through the windows. This was never your kingdom. And now, it's gone. He stood frozen, breathing heavy, fists clenched but useless. For once, the power wasn't in his hands. It was in mine. And I let the silence hang, let the weight of it crush him the way his arrogance had crushed me all these years. That night was the first time I realized something powerful: betrayal doesn't have to break you. Sometimes it builds you. Sometimes it sets you free. And as I looked at my brother, his pride shattered, his future slipping through his fingers, I made myself a promise. This wasn't the end. This was the beginning. The world was about to see what happens when the underdog finally bites back. I wasn't always the man who could stand in a kitchen and throw those words like knives. No, I was once the quiet one, the one who thought family was sacred and unbreakable. Growing up in Charleston, our family name meant something. The Hales were respected, admired even, because my father had built his fortune in shipping and real estate. But inside those walls, behind the big gates and polished windows, things were far from perfect. My brother Anthony was always the golden boy, tall, confident, reckless with money but adored for it. And me? I was the shadow, the one they tolerated but never celebrated. From the time we were kids, the differences were obvious. Anthony got the new toys, the praise at the dinner table, the private tutors who came just for him. I got hand-me-downs, lectures, and a pat on the head if I was lucky. "Marcus, you should be more like your brother," my mother used to say, her voice soft but her eyes sharp. It didn't matter how many times I stayed up late fixing things around the house, how many chores I took off their plate, I was always measured against Anthony's shine. And I always came up short. Still, I swallowed it. I told myself, family is family. You don't keep score. You don't complain. You just love them harder, hope one day they see your worth. And for years, that's exactly what I did. I built their world quietly, without thanks. When storms hit and tore shingles off the beach house, I was the one up there hammering while Anthony was out drinking with his friends. When Dad's health started failing, I drove him to every appointment while Anthony made excuses. And when Mom cried because bills were stacking up, I picked up 2 jobs while Anthony blew through thousands at casinos. I kept my mouth shut, because that's what the quiet son does. But let me tell you something: silence builds pressure. And pressure always finds a way to explode. The crack started last Christmas, when Anthony announced in front of everyone that he was planning a family trip. He leaned back in his chair, grinning, glass of whiskey in hand, talking about yachts in Miami, beach resorts, private chefs. I remember the sparkle in everyone's eyes as they clapped and cheered. Everyone except me. Because I hadn't been invited. Not even asked. They sat there at the long dining table, passing gifts, planning the details, while I sat 2 chairs down with nothing but a polite smile frozen on my face. I'll never forget that moment. Mom looked at me, her lips pressed thin like she wanted to say something, but she didn't. Dad cleared his throat, avoided my eyes. And Anthony, oh Anthony, he raised his glass and said, "Marcus, maybe next time. You don't really fit the vibe, you know?" Laughter followed, light, dismissive, cutting me deeper than any knife. I laughed too, weakly, because what else was I supposed to do? Start a scene on Christmas? Ruin their perfect little holiday? No. I just sat there, nodding, while my insides burned like fire. When they left for that trip weeks later, the house was eerily quiet. Their suitcases were gone, their cars missing from the driveway, the sound of their voices replaced by the whine of the ocean winds. They didn't even ask me to come see them off. The only thing they left me was the dog Max, a golden retriever who seemed to sense my loneliness better than any human in that house ever did. I remember sitting on the porch, Max's head resting on my knee, watching their taillights disappear down the road. That was the night I whispered to him, "We're all they left behind, buddy. Just you and me." But here's the thing about being left behind: you start seeing things clearly. I walked through that massive beach house, room by room, noticing how much of it was mine. The curtains I had hung, the shelves I had built, the pipes I had fixed. Every inch carried my fingerprints, yet none of it carried my name. And as I wandered those halls, a question started circling in my head: why was I the one left behind? Why was I treated like a servant in a house I had helped hold together? That's when I found the folder. Tucked away in Dad's old study, hidden under a pile of unopened mail, was a stack of documents. property deeds, titles, and my breath caught the house itself. The beach house was in my father's name, and in his will, written years before his health declined, he had left it not to Anthony, not to Mom, but to me. Marcus Hale. My name. Clear as day. I sat there for hours, staring at those papers, my heart racing. They had known. They had to have known. That's why Anthony was always so quick to remind me whose roof I was under, because deep down, he feared the truth. This house wasn't his. It never was. And the moment I realized that, something in me shifted. For the first time in my life, I wasn't the shadow. I wasn't the forgotten son. I was the rightful owner. The decision came quietly at first, like a whisper: sell the house. Take back what was yours. Let them come home to nothing. At first, I shook my head, told myself I couldn't. It was too drastic, too cruel. But then I thought about Christmas. About their laughter, their champagne glasses raised while I sat invisible at the table. I thought about all the years of being overlooked, of breaking my back to hold together a family that never once held me back. And the whisper grew louder, fiercer, until it was no longer a whisper at all. It was a roar. So while they lounged on yachts and posted pictures of their dream trip, I got to work. I contacted realtors, arranged viewings, negotiated deals. Every step felt like reclaiming a piece of my soul. I walked those same halls, but this time with strangers at my side, pointing out the marble floors, the ocean view, the vaulted ceilings I had helped maintain. And when the deal was finally signed, $6.2 million, I didn't feel guilt. I felt freedom. I felt justice. When Anthony stormed back into that kitchen weeks later, demanding answers, screaming about betrayal, he thought he still had the upper hand. He thought I was still the quiet brother, the shadow. But he was wrong. Because I had finally stepped out of that shadow, and I wasn't going back. The day they returned was hotter than usual, one of those Charleston afternoons where the air feels thick enough to choke you. I was sitting on the porch with Max, sipping a glass of iced tea, when the black SUVs rolled up the driveway. Their luggage was piled high on the roof, designer bags stacked like trophies from a hunt. The moment Anthony stepped out, shades still on, grin plastered across his face, I knew. He thought life was still his party, that nothing had changed. And oh, how wrong he was. Mom came out next, dressed in linen, her hair tied back, the kind of glow on her skin that only comes from saltwater spas and luxury retreats. Dad moved slower, weaker than before, leaning on his cane, but even he looked refreshed. They were all talking over each other, laughing, dragging their bags up the steps like they owned the world. And for a second, just a second, I wondered if maybe I had been too harsh. If maybe selling the house had been too much. But then Anthony opened his mouth. Marcus, he called out, loud and mocking, like he was greeting a butler instead of a brother. How's our little dog sitter been doing? Hope Max didn't give you too much trouble. Don't worry, we'll make sure to throw you a bone next time. His friend snickered, hauling the last of the luggage inside. My grip on the glass tightened until I thought it might shatter. A bone. That was all I was to him. Not a brother. Not family. Just someone who could be thrown scraps while he dined like a king. I stood up slowly, setting the glass down, my chest heavy but my voice steady. Anthony, I said, before you go dragging your bags inside, there's something you need to know. He barely glanced at me, already barking orders at one of his buddies to grab the bigger suitcase. Not now, Marcus. We're jet-lagged. Save the sob story for later. That was it. That was the last match to the powder keg. I stepped closer, blocking his path to the door. No. You're going to hear this now. Because this isn't your house anymore. The laughter stopped. For the first time, Anthony froze. His sunglasses slid down the bridge of his nose as he stared at me. What did you just say? Mom frowned, clutching her bag. Marcus, don't start. Dad's voice was weak but firm. Son, move aside. We just got back. Whatever this is can wait. But I didn't move. Not an inch. My voice grew louder, sharper, each word slicing the humid air. No, it can't wait. This house doesn't belong to you anymore. Not to any of you. I sold it. While you were sipping champagne and wasting 80 grand on your little escape, I sold the beach house. And the new owners will be here in a week. The silence that followed was deafening. Even the gulls circling above seemed to pause. Anthony's face twisted from confusion to rage, his jaw tightening as his fists curled. You're lying again, Marcus. This is just another one of your sad little tantrums. You couldn't sell this house if your life depended on it. I reached into my back pocket and pulled out the envelope, thick with copies of the signed contracts, the wire transfers, the realtor's notes. I tossed it onto the porch steps between us. The papers scattered in the wind, fluttering across the wood like confetti at a funeral. Read it, I said. It's all there. The deal's done. 6.2 million. Gone. Mom gasped, bending down to snatch one of the pages before it blew away. Her hand shook as her eyes scanned the paper, her voice breaking. Anthony, he's not lying. Dad's cane hit the ground with a sharp crack as he struggled to steady himself. His eyes, tired and weathered, locked on mine. Marcus, what have you done? What had I done? I stood taller, chest rising and falling, and for once I didn't flinch. I did what none of you ever thought I could. I took control. I stopped being your servant, your forgotten son. This house wasn't yours to flaunt. It was mine to protect. And I chose to end the game. Anthony lunged forward, shoving me so hard I nearly fell. His voice erupted, raw and furious. You thief! You ungrateful snake! Do you have any idea what you've ruined? Our parties, our memories, our status. Your status? I cut in, my own voice rising to match his. That's all you care about, isn't it? The image. The money. The way people look at you when you pull up in a flashy car or throw another empty party. You never cared about this family. You never cared about me. And guess what? Now the world will see who you really are when the house you bragged about isn't even yours anymore. Mom's voice cracked as tears filled her eyes. Marcus, please, we could have worked this out. You didn't have to go this far. I turned to her, the hurt in her words cutting deep, but I refused to let it pierce me. Mom, how many times did I try to work it out? How many times did I sit at that table, invisible, listening to you praise Anthony while I cleaned up the mess? You had your chance to see me. To value me. And you chose not to. So don't cry now, when too late. Dad took a step forward, leaning heavy on his cane, his voice trembling with a mixture of anger and disappointment. You've destroyed this family, Marcus. Do you understand that? I swallowed hard, but my voice didn't falter. No, Dad. This family destroyed itself a long time ago. I just stopped pretending. Anthony's face turned crimson as he shouted over me, his words slamming into the air like fists. You'll regret this, Marcus. You think money makes you powerful? You think selling the house makes you a man? You're nothing. You'll always be nothing. I looked him dead in the eye, steady as stone. Maybe. But at least I'm free. And with that, I turned, Max at my side, and walked back into the house one last time. Their voices trailed behind me, anger, grief, disbelief blending into a storm of sound. But for the first time in my life, I didn't shrink. I didn't apologize. I let them scream, because the truth had finally been spoken. That night, as I sat alone in the living room surrounded by half-packed boxes, I realized something. They were broken, yes. They were furious, yes. But so was I, once. And I had survived. Now it was their turn to feel what it meant to be left behind. The week passed like a storm hanging over the coast, dark, heavy, ready to break at any second. Anthony barely spoke to me after that day. He stomped around the house like a caged animal, muttering curses under his breath, slamming doors as if the noise alone could undo the sale. Mom cried in the evenings, her tears echoing through the halls, her voice asking questions I refused to answer. Dad grew colder, his silence sharp enough to wound. And me? I packed. Box by box, memory by memory, I packed away the years of being invisible, of being small, of being their servant. Every item I taped shut felt like a step closer to freedom. But freedom has a weight too. I'd sit in the living room at night, Max curled at my feet, staring at the bare walls and empty shelves. The house was already becoming a ghost, the life we'd built inside it dissolving into cardboard. I told myself I didn't care. That this was justice. That they deserved to feel what it meant to lose something they took for granted. Yet deep down, when the silence grew too thick, I wondered, had I gone too far? Was I punishing them, or was I punishing myself? The day the new owners arrived, the air smelled like salt and fresh paint. A young couple pulled up in a silver truck, their little girl peeking out the back window with wide eyes. They stepped onto the porch with nervous smiles, the kind of excitement that comes when you're stepping into a dream. "Mr. Hale," the man asked, reaching out his hand. "We're the Campbells. Just wanted to thank you again. This house, it means everything to us." I shook his hand, forcing a smile. They didn't know the battlefield they were walking into. To them, this was paradise. To me, it was the wreckage of a war I had barely survived. Behind me, I heard Anthony scoff, his voice dripping with venom. "Campbells, huh? Enjoy the place. Just know you stole it out from under a family that deserved it more." The wife looked startled, clutching her daughter's hand. I turned sharply on Anthony. "Enough. Don't you dare ruin this for them. They didn't steal anything. They bought what was mine to sell." He glared at me, his voice rising. "Yours? You still don't get it, do you? Nothing was ever yours. Not the house, not this family, not even your place at the table. You're a thief, Marcus. A traitor." I stepped closer, my voice low but steady. "No, Anthony. I'm the only one who finally told the truth. This house was never yours to flaunt. And this family? It stopped being mine the day you decided money mattered more than blood." The Campbells shifted uncomfortably, clearly sensing the tension. I forced myself to soften, turning back to them. "I'm sorry you had to see this. You'll love it here. The sunsets, the ocean breeze, it's everything you dreamed of. Don't let us ruin it." They nodded awkwardly, ushering their little girl inside, leaving me and my family on the porch in silence. Mom's face was streaked with tears, her hands wringing the fabric of her dress. "Marcus," she whispered, "how could you watch strangers walk through these doors? How could you let them take our home?" I swallowed hard, staring at her, at the pain etched across her face. "Because it was never truly ours, Mom. Not the way you thought. A home isn't built on marble floors or ocean views. It's built on love, on respect, on loyalty. And those things have been missing from this family for years." Dad's voice cracked, brittle with anger. "You've destroyed us, son. All for what? Money? Pride?" I shook my head, my throat tight. "No, Dad. For freedom. For finally stepping out of the shadow you all kept me in. For once in my life, I chose myself." Anthony's fists clenched, his voice breaking as he shouted. "You'll regret this, Marcus. Mark my words. You'll wake up one day and realize you've burned the only bridge you ever had. And when that day comes, you'll be all alone." I looked him straight in the eye, my voice steady as stone. "I've been alone my whole life, Anthony. The difference now is I'm finally okay with it." That night, I slept on the porch, Max curled against me, the ocean roaring in the distance. The Campbells' laughter drifted through the windows, light and innocent, filling the space my family's bitterness had once poisoned. For the first time in years, the house felt alive. And I realized something: it was never mine to keep. It was mine to pass on, to let someone else build something better. Still, as I watched the stars fade into morning, a question gnawed at me: if I had freed myself from their shadow, why did it still feel like a piece of me was missing? The night after the Campbells moved in, the house no longer felt like ours. Their lights glowed warmly through the windows, their laughter carried out to the porch, their little girl's footsteps pattered across the polished floors. For them, it was a dream just beginning. For us, it was the end of an era. My family sat in silence at the edge of the driveway, surrounded by bags they hadn't even unpacked. It was as if they were waiting for someone to wake them from a nightmare that wasn't going to end. Anthony couldn't sit still. He paced back and forth, his fists clenching, his jaw grinding, the weight of his anger pulling at the air like a storm about to break. Finally, he snapped. He spun on me, his voice low, venom dripping with every syllable. "You think you've won, Marcus. You think selling the house makes you some kind of hero. But you've done nothing but spit on Dad's legacy and destroy this family." I met his glare, my chest tight but my voice firm. Dad's legacy wasn't marble floors or ocean views. It was supposed to be us, brothers, family. You destroyed that long before I sold this house. His laugh was sharp, bitter. Family? Don't you dare talk to me about family. You've never been one of us. You've always been weak, bitter, jealous of everything I had. You hated me because people saw me, and not you. I took a step closer, my words cutting sharper than his. You're right. People did see you. They saw the golden boy, the favorite. But they didn't see the mess behind the curtain, the debts, the lies, the nights you came home drunk while I cleaned up your mistakes. You've lived your whole life thinking you're untouchable. But not anymore. His face twisted, his eyes wild. You stole everything from me, Marcus. You think you're better than me now? You think money makes you stronger? You're nothing without this family. Nothing. And then it happened. He lunged. His hands grabbed my shirt, shoving me back hard against the hood of Dad's car. The impact rattled through my ribs as his fists came up, ready to strike. For a second, I saw the boy he used to be, the brother who towered over me on the playground, who pushed me into the dirt just to remind me I was smaller. But this time, I wasn't that boy anymore. I shoved back with everything I had, breaking free, my own voice exploding. Hit me, Anthony. Go ahead. Because that's all you've ever been good at, using your fists, your money, your arrogance to keep me down. But I'm still here. And no matter how hard you swing, you'll never take that from me. We stood there, chest to chest, breathing like beasts, fists clenched, eyes locked. Mom screamed from behind us, her voice shaking with desperation. Stop it. Both of you. Please. Dad's cane clattered as he tried to stand, his frail voice breaking through the chaos. Enough. Enough, before you tear what's left apart. But the fire was already burning. Anthony's eyes glistened with fury, his voice dropping to a whisper. I hate you, Marcus. I hate you more than I've hated anyone in my life. I swallowed hard, my throat raw, and whispered back. No, Anthony. You don't hate me. You hate yourself. You hate that for once, you're not in control. You hate that I stood up to you. And that's why this moment matters. Because now, for the first time, you see me. His fist trembled in the air, suspended between rage and restraint. For a heartbeat, I thought he'd do it, that he'd strike me, that we'd finally end this with blood. But then his hand dropped, falling limp at his side. He turned away, his shoulders heaving, his voice breaking. You'll regret this, you'll regret it for the rest of your life. Mom rushed to him, clutching his arm, tears streaming down her face. Dad leaned heavy on his cane, his eyes locked on me with disappointment that pierced deeper than any blow. The weight of their silence pressed against me until I could barely breathe. I walked away. Past the driveway, past the gates, down the quiet road where the ocean winds howled like ghosts. Max padded beside me, his steady presence the only thing anchoring me. My chest burned, my hands shook, my mind screamed, but underneath it all, a strange calm settled in. Because in that moment, I realized something powerful. This wasn't about a house anymore. It wasn't about money, or status, or even revenge. It was about finally breaking free from the chains of being unseen, unheard, unloved. For years, I had begged for scraps of their approval. And now, for the first time, I didn't need it. But freedom comes with a cost. As I stood there on the edge of the shore, the waves crashing against the sand, I felt the weight of what I had done. My family was broken. My brother despised me. My parents looked at me like a stranger. And though I had won the battle, I wondered if I had lost the war. I didn't sleep that night. The sound of the waves outside my apartment window crashed over and over, echoing the storm inside my head. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Anthony's face twisted in rage, Mom's tears spilling, Dad's cane trembling as he begged us to stop. For years, I had imagined standing up to my brother, forcing him to see me, to feel what I had carried. And now that I had done it, the victory felt hollow. The house was gone. The laughter of the Campbells filled the walls where my childhood had once lived. My family was broken, and no amount of money or bravado could stitch the pieces back together. But maybe, just maybe, that wasn't the end of the story. Maybe it was the beginning of a new one. The next morning, I walked into Dad's old study one last time. The Campbells hadn't moved their things in yet, and the room still smelled faintly of leather and cedar. His books lined the shelves, dust catching the light that streamed through the window. On the desk, an old photo of us sat in its frame: Mom, Dad, Anthony, and me, grinning on the front porch of the house we no longer owned. I picked it up, my hands trembling. We looked so happy back then. Before the vacations without me, before the shouting matches, before the jealousy and resentment poisoned everything. For a moment, I wanted to smash the frame, to shatter the illusion. But instead, I held it close. Because even if it was a lie, it was still a memory. And memories are the one thing no sale contract can erase. When I left the house, I didn't look back. Max trotted at my side, loyal as always. I drove until the coastline stretched into the horizon, until the ocean air no longer carried the scent of betrayal. And there, on the cliffside, I let the truth settle in. I had sold the house not just to hurt them, but to free myself. And now that it was gone, I realized freedom comes with loneliness. But loneliness isn't the same as weakness. Sometimes it's the first step toward strength. Weeks passed before I saw my parents again. They came quietly, no Anthony this time. Mom sat across from me at the diner, her hands trembling around a cup of coffee she never touched. Dad leaned heavy on his cane, his eyes tired but softer than they'd been that night. Marcus, Mom whispered, her voice raw. We don't agree with what you did. But we know why you did it. Dad nodded slowly. Sometimes, a man has to burn bridges to build his own path. Just make sure the fire doesn't consume you, son. I swallowed hard, my chest aching. I never wanted to hurt you. I just couldn't stay invisible anymore. Mom reached across the table, her fingers brushing mine. You're not invisible. You never were. We didn't see clearly. And I'm sorry for that. Her words cracked something open in me. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like I had to fight. I just let myself feel the weight of her apology. It wasn't enough to heal everything, but it was a start. Anthony never came. And maybe he never will. Maybe his hate will burn too hot to ever cool. But that's not my burden to carry anymore. I can only carry myself forward. Now, I stand here telling you this story, not because I want pity, not because I want revenge, but because I want you to see what I couldn't see for so long. We waste so much of our lives begging for love in the wrong places, fighting for scraps of validation from people who will never give it. But the truth is, your worth isn't measured by their approval. It's measured by the courage you have to stand up and say, I deserve better. So if you've ever felt invisible, if you've ever been cast aside, if you've ever been told you're less than, listen to me. You are enough. Don't wait for someone else to hand you a seat at their table. Build your own table. And if you have to burn down a house along the way, let it be the prison you were trapped in, not the home you carry in your heart. Because at the end of the day, houses crumble, families fracture, legacies fade. But the strength you find when you finally choose yourself, that lasts forever. And maybe, just maybe, that's the only inheritance we really need. Life will test you in ways you don't expect. Sometimes the people closest to you will make you feel like you don't matter. But don't let betrayal define you. Let it refine you. Because the real mansion you're building isn't made of bricks or beach views, it's made of courage, self-worth, and the belief that you are enough.